Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the SWW show. I'm Mike. I have with me a fine gentleman, I guess, named AJ. AJ, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty well, but I don't think I'm the person that you're talking about there.
That's true. And also, we have with us a special guest. You're gonna have to help me with your last name. I'm gonna break it to you, Kevin.
Kevin Giguere. Peace into everyone. Yeah, my name is hard because I'm French Canadian, so I feel like you guys pronouncing my name is kind of a rite of passage of some sort.
I was totally gonna not do a G. I was gonna be like Giri. Like I was gonna be like
I was gonna go with Gagir.
Yeah, I pronounce it Giguere. In French, it's Giguere, so it's slightly pronounced slightly differently.
Okay.
I try to adapt pronunciations according to language spoken.
Nice, nice. So, Kevin, what what do you do?
I am an independent game developer, so not too many of us around. Um, I've released two games. I've released a JRPG called Arrowlight Core and a runner racing game called Astral Traveler, both of which came out last year. We're in 2019, so they came out in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And in February of this year, I am releasing Tech Support Error Unknown, which is a game where you play the role of a tech support specialist.
So Kevin, I'm not gonna lie. When I had the email chain coming back and forth between you and Mike, and I was CC'd on that, I was really confused because I just saw tech support error unknown. I'm going, is there something wrong with the site? Like, is there something wrong with our podcast feed? Like, what is going on? And then finally I start reading them like, oh, I'm still not sure what this is. Finally Mike emails me and he goes, oh yeah, we got this guy. This is a game title. And I go, now all these chains make a lot more sense.
I feel like it's been the initial reaction of more than a few people kind of being a little confused by the title of the game, kind of wondering, okay, is this a game? Is this a problem? Like depending on the context that they are seeing the title of the game, it's been interesting to see people's reaction. But once they do realize that, okay, this is actually a game, then people are intrigued. People want to know, okay, you play the role of a tech support specialist. What does that even mean? How is this even a game? And it's been fun to bring them the game, put the game in their hands, and have them try it out. And reaction has been really positive towards that. So that's apparently people have always wanted to be tech support specialists, and they didn't even know.
Was that not your dream job growing up? I thought it was everyone's dream job. You want to just be on the other side, being like, "Did you turn it on? Are you sure it's on? Is it plugged in?" See, that sounds great to me. You have a cup of coffee in one hand, you're good to go.
Exactly, it's a relaxing job.
So we'll get into it in a second, but I was curious, Kevin, like, where did you get your start from? Because obviously, like, looking at like independent games developer, you have to wear like a lot of hats and have a relative lot of amount of skills, and also it's not exactly known as independent game development's easy job per se.
Yeah, that is definitely true. The life of an independent game developer is actually, I think it requires a much broader skill set than a lot of game developers even realize once they start getting into the process. Because at first glance, oh, people imagine I'll just make a great game and that's going to be the end of it. People will love the game, they'll play the game. But the reality is much more complicated than that, because you still need to be able to sell your game. You need to make people aware that your game exists. Um, and there are other realities to take into consideration, like financial realities. Tech support is going to be released in German and Chinese languages, for instance, and that process obviously costs money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not enough to just be able to make games. You also need to be able to put on all of these other hats, be able to even the simple the simple process of being able to talk about your game, going to conventions, talking with people. I feel like it's an interesting. It can be an interesting process because even that can be considered a skill set, making people interested in your game, presenting it in a realistic but still in the best possible light. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been. Obviously, this is my third game, so that's kind of the skill sets that I've been building over the course of the last few years. Originally, I went to college, so I'm 36 right now.
Okay.
Originally, I went to college in years when I had fewer gray hairs as a programmer, and I have a degree in computer sciences. Over the years, I've mostly done web development. I've done a lot of website stuff. I used to manage a big website that does online training for factory workers. I've also done some Flash game programming while that was still a thing in the mid 2000s.
Well, it's still a thing. We have Adobe Animate. Thank you very much.
Pardon?
So we still basically like the joke's always we still have Adobe Animate, which is the modern equivalent of Flash. But like, yeah, no one uses Flash in that way anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, back when I was doing it, like it was for games that were embedded in websites. I was working on really big brands. I was part of a company that did contract work, and I worked on stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I worked on a Wonder Woman cartoon game. A few big brands like that, which were really really interesting, but they were also very small projects because they were Flash promotional games on websites. They were free, so the investment in them was always kind of limited. And later on, I returned to web development for a while, and I decided, you know what, I want to work on a game, and I knew that I wanted to have complete control over the game that I would be producing. I wanted for it to be my vision. At that time, I had a full-time job, but I didn't have any kids that I needed to sustain. I didn't have a family, none of that. My expenses were very low, so whatever money I could make during my full-time job, I was investing into contract artists, having a bunch of assets created, and that's how over the years I built Arrowlight Core, which became the first game that I ever released. And it took about 4.5 years to make, and then released it as my first title last year, about at the same time as I decided to quit my job and do this full time.
Okay. That's actually a really interesting background, I think, and stuff like even starting like web dev, which my background is like game design and development, and I've done a lot of programming. Web dev is like the thing I refuse to touch at, so I'm like, I don't understand how that works. All of you have a good day.
It's been so the interesting thing about web dev is that there's a lot of visual presentation of stuff on the internet. You kind of you're trying to present things in a very specific way. You're trying to make it interesting, but it's a little bit more constrained than the more freeform opportunities that we have with games. When it came time to make tech support, I feel like I managed to build a lot on that web dev experience exactly because of that, because that's how production software is created. It's a little bit more square. It's a little bit more lists and menus and all that. And that was kind of one of my goals with the game, to present things in a realistic way, in a relatable way. I wanted this software in the game. I guess I should probably say to people what tech support is, right?
Yeah. So if we're going in there, let's go into like what is tech support.
Yeah, let's go there. So tech support is a game where you play the role of a tech support specialist. It's presented entirely through this simulated computer environment. So it's an environment that looks like an operating system, looks a little bit like Windows and Linux and all of those things. And you have your software available, you have your email, you have a web browser, you can change the background of your environment, and you have the ticket manager, which is used to communicate with customers and kind of figure out what their problems are. So it really presents the entire the entire game is presented as a copy of a operating system, which I felt was something that had not been done a lot in gaming, and I kind of wanted to take that opportunity to kind of make it really relatable to people, involve elements like the command prompt, the command prompt that is found in Windows. Like that's not something that is typically found in a lot of games. But I also wanted to make sure that all of those software were accessible to people. Like you don't need to have a computer science degree to play tech support. It is very accessible, but relatable, both for people who are not that familiar with computers and people at the top level who do computing 12 to 16 hours a day like I do.
So, as we're getting to this, if you don't mind a second, so part of it to me, which is interesting balance we talked about, is the, like, how much of understanding computers you have to have. Because to me, like, when you talk about, like, that line, it reminds me of there's a few games the last few years, that have been, like, very much like a programming simulator games. And, like, how did you find that balance of, like, not going that far over, but, like, still, like, not being as simple as, like, I click a button and a thing happens, so, like, so the people who understand anything would be like, well, obviously I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. So the first thing that I did, the first when you start the game, there's actually an on-screen post-it that tells you, oh, do this in order to. It tells you to check your emails basically, and I think that was kind of one of the key components, which was to guide the player through various actions, but also like the environment, because the environment was familiar, it was already helping players understand what they're supposed to do. The game is going to be sold on Steam. If you have Steam, then you're probably using Windows. There's a chance you're using Mac or Linux, but it's still going to be just as accessible on those platforms because you understand how a computer works, and I think that was the key component. Unlike most games where you might take a controller and okay, this button jumps, this button shoots, and you need to aim all over the place, and some buttons have multiple functions. Here, you're basically doing the same actions that you would be doing on a regular computer, but now you're doing it within this game environment, and you're free to explore this sandbox to discover, okay, I can do this. These are the options that are available, and there's a bunch of hidden stuff as well that kind of encourage people to explore all of these aspects. So I think the familiarity with the operating system was really the key component to making this game accessible when it comes to understanding the controls of it. And then the difficulty level comes from having to manage all of these accessible, easy tasks, but having to manage a lot of them, doing them rapidly. Yeah.
I feel like I've been asking everything. AJ, do you have anything you want to start with of like where you want to go with?
Yeah, I'm looking at the screens of it and the interface, the look of it. It reminds me of, I'm blanking on the name of the game. It came out late 17, early 2018. It was that, I want to call it Knight's Tale, but that's the movie.
Kingsway.
Kingsway, yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're playing, you're on a computer, right? And you're just doing the stuff.
Yeah.
As you normally would. So that's really cool. Yeah. And I noticed you said it's being translated to German, which makes sense because they love the simulators.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
Chinese, which it's a very large market, so why not? Why not try, right? Like, so I'll be interested to see how this does in the German market, considering like you look at the top selling games over there, and it's like Euro Truck Simulator, it's Forklift Simulator, it's any of those the Simulator 2018, 2019 games. So I think it'll be interesting to see your success in that market because they love these games. I'm definitely a fan of the style of it. 'Cause it's just like, I mean, other games that have done kind of this, right? It's like Hacknet. It's not the same exact thing, but it's still kind of like, okay, know the programs that you need to run to do this, and it's like you get way in over your head if you're not into that stuff. Whereas this seems to be much more user friendly, I guess is the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I was definitely going for a more user-friendly interface. I was trying to avoid the fake feeling of that a lot of games so a lot of games kind of emulate computers, but when you look at them, it looks like the game's idea of reality rather
Mm-hmm.
than how reality actually is. It's like when people play games in movies and they're holding the controller and they're just pressing all the buttons, and that's not how people play games at all. And that's kind of what I want to do with this game. I want to go the other way and go, okay, what is how are computers actually? How do they actually function? How do you actually work with them and bring out the fun out of it? And I think there's when you create these environments and you provide freedom and context and goals. I think there's a lot of really cool situations that can occur, which wouldn't necessarily occur in real life because obviously that's not why we use Windows. That's not why we use any of these software. We're not rewarded, I guess, for any of it. We don't have any goals or anything. Um, but yeah, like, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with tech support in general. My goal was, let's take a theme that is weird, tech support. It's never really been done before. Let's present it in this way that hasn't really been done before, and kind of explore these different ways of approaching making a game, and kind of bring something new and fresh to the genre. Even the way you interact with customers, it's all done through procedural conversation. So every conversation is going to feel different. People talk differently. They use different
Mm-hmm.
expressions. They're going to say hello a different way. They're going to use, they have different ways of using sentences. Some of them are going to use typos, are going to make typos. Some of them are going to use emojis. So you have all of this breadth of possibilities when it comes to all these conversations, which I also wanted to explore in this game because it's not done all that much. Usually in games you kind of have a dialogue tree, and you have a number of canned responses that you can give to different situations. Here, I wanted to make it a little broader and have interactions with customers a little more open ended in that sense.
Okay, so actually on that sense, then how do you like? So you're doing basically my understanding is everything by yourself minus maybe some like contract artwork here or there, as you described it. How do you find like the balance in writing of like, okay, this seems like a natural response if I let the player type basically anything comparatively, like, or is there some responses where like the person on the other side just goes, repeat that again or something? Like, how do you find that balance of like, here's an almost endless array of things you can do, but the player still has to get a response?
Sure. A lot of it comes down to the way questions are the interactions are structured.
Mm-hmm.
The player can ask basically any question, right? Like he can ask, the customer, what is the problem that you're encountering, how did that problem happen. You don't type the actual questions in the system. Instead, you're presented with a list of macros in the game. Basically, the company you're working for, Kazar, provides you with the system that you're using, the Spectrum OS system, and all the software. They don't want you necessarily communicating directly with customers. They don't want you to diverge from the corporate line. So they are. So you have all of these macros. They are all of these ways that you can communicate with customers, but you can still, you can ask them questions. You can provide solutions to the stuff that they are, the issues that you think that they're having, depending on how they respond. And sometimes the customers will also be asking questions, so you have to kind of figure out how do you answer it. You need to answer it according to what the customer's expectation is going to be. If, for instance, if the customer, if for any reason you're not talking with the customer for a moment, they will get impatient and they will call you out on it, and they'll ask you, "Oh, have you just abandoned me?" And you can tell them, "No, I haven't," and they'll respond accordingly. Or if you decide, you know what, I'll just ask them another question. I'll say, "Oh, what is the problem you're encountering?" Well, you're not answering the question that they're asking, so they'll call you out on that as well. And that's where a lot of that interaction comes from. It's, what is the customer expecting? What are the answers that they're looking for? And it's like a real conversation, right? Like if you ask me a question and suddenly I start talking about something else entirely, then, if in the context of tech support, you would call me out on it, and you would ask me if I'm crazy or something.
Okay.
That's basically how the game is structured.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So there's one other big thing on the trailer kind of taps the game, and I assume you're keeping somewhat quiet on, but I was curious, kind of like, the game looks like in like the trailers they release, kind of goes weird places for a quote unquote tech support game. We'll call it something about like sick family members and and other hackers. Do you at least want to like touch onto like where did that idea come from in this thing that like at first glance seems like a normal simulator? In quotes.
Sure. So another one of my goals with tech support was kind of give players. I didn't want them to just go through the tedium of the job until they get bored of the game and just move on. I wanted to give them choices. I wanted to empower them. I wanted to place them in this this tech support situation is where everything starts. But from there, it does broaden up. You're working for this company, Kazar. They are a massive international telecommunication company. And there's this other group called Indigo, who is kind of a hacktivist group. They are trying to take Kazar down. So you got to figure out, okay, do I want to work with Indigo or do I want to work with Kazar? Obviously, both of them kind of hate each other. But that's too simple. I didn't want to just make it, okay, choose the red pill or the blue pill. I wanted the yellow pill. So now you have the police who interferes and who wants your help in trying to figure out the whole situation, figure out, okay, do we need to arrest these people? Do we need to arrest those people? Do we have any evidence? You have your brother who he's taking care of your sick mother and he needs money. So suddenly he's asking you, okay, can you help me out? I know your, tech support job doesn't really pay much. So, he's asking for whatever you can provide. And there's all of these other situations as well, which pop up over the course of the adventure, and kind of the choices that you make over the course of the game are going to matter. They're going to define who ends up chatting with you. They're going to define where, what software you might have access to. That's going to change. Like Indigo might give you some tools to do nefarious deeds. But if you choose not to go with them, then they're just not going to bother with you and going to move on.
Okay.
So that's kind of what my goal is. The game has over 20 different endings. I believe it's around 23 different endings. And all of those are based on the decisions that you make over the course of the game. And that was really important for me. It's not a matter of you arrive at the end of the game and then you press the red button or the blue button. It's all the choices all throughout that really change the experience. And also, once you've completed the game, well, you might go through it again and then do something else entirely, and will get rewarded all throughout the adventure with different results.
Okay. AJ, I want to move into some more kind of dev cycle-y stuff too, so I don't know if you have any more specific questions on the game itself right now.
I will say, I'm looking at one of the screenshots. I do like how one of the options is just, have you tried turning it off and on again?
Oh, you did. I do like how you put that in.
That was the first thing that I added to the game, in fact.
Okay.
It's good to know that's.
Yep, it's classic.
That will always be there.
I have heard legitimate stories that has fixed like an absurd amount of actual tech support stuff. So the thing I actually want to talk about, to kind of get to the tail end of this is, so going through, I see you do stuff like stream your development and have a patron to help you make games. I was curious, like, how going down this route like changes the way you make it, and like it's very open in comparison to like some games are concerned about opening up processes because what if people truly steal your ideas and stuff like that?
Yeah, so my first game, I started streaming in 2016, in mid 2016, I believe. And my back in the day, I was working on my first game, Arrowlight Core. I was really concerned while I was working on it, I need to not be spoiling anything. I need to, I was always working on stuff that was very early in the game, or maps that were kind of not generic, but without context, you don't have necessarily the full understanding of what is being created.
Mhm.
And kind of one thing that I've started to understand over the years is that it doesn't matter as much as we'd like it to think. I think I think unless the people really are there each and every stream and they're following the stream with a ton of interest, and they kind of get spoiled on it, unless they did that for the course, the entire development time, which, in the case of tech support, I started in October of 2017, so over a year ago. Unless they do that, like, they're never going to have all of the context. They might have one thing or a few things spoiled, but the entirety of the experience, I think, will still remain under wraps. But I mean, even with the stuff that gets spoiled, what I felt from my viewers was a lot of excitement, a lot of passion, a lot of hype. People are hyped for this game. They can't wait to play it. They know a lot of the stuff that went into the game. But when it comes to streaming, I think even though they see a lot of stuff with the game, what really brings people to streams is the streamer itself. And the community. They want to interact with the streamer. They want to interact with each other. And in the case of my own stream, the games that I streamed the development of kind of become an excuse for people to gather together and bond together. And I can even say that. So I'm working on tech support, but I'm also working on a few other titles.
There's the one that's on your Patreon, I believe, Digital Rogue. That
Yeah,
looks really
absolutely.
intriguing to me. I really like the look of that that GIF. Like, I'm like that instantly. I'm like, I want to know about that.
Yeah. We can touch about that a little later, absolutely, because I absolutely love Digital Rogue. But obviously, Digital Rogue, it's a 3D action game. It's very different from Tech Support, which is a more strategy type of game. And people are sticking around. People are sticking around because it's this community, and people are chatting with each other, and they love to see the development process, regardless of. A lot of them are saying, "Oh, I'm less interested in this game, but I love to see the process out of it. And a lot of them kind of want to become devs themselves or
Mm-hmm.
are devs themselves. So they kind of have something to gain from that regardless.
Mm. And that makes sense. I just always feel like that whenever you talk to people, there's always that like inherent concern. I feel like especially in the beginning of like becoming a dev of like, but they're my ideas. You can't have them. And there's a lot of it like it's in the execution and you can copy it, but can you really? And I'm
Yeah.
I'm also curious too, if you don't mind talking about being an independent dev too. Like, do you feel that the people who watch your streams are they consistently at least like eventually buying your games even though they've been here the entire process because they want to support you, or do you feel that like it has some sort of like, well, at least they support me on the stream because it has a negative impact on the sales side?
It varies. Some of them are. So I don't have the biggest audience. First of all, game devs on Twitch don't really have the audiences that
Mm-hmm.
whatever popular game, PUBG or Fortnite or anything like that. We will never get those sizes of audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for a while, Twitch was trying to promote game devs, but that kind of went that was pushed aside after I think it was a failed experiment on their side because, quite frankly, unless you're in game dev, the average
Yeah.
customer is not that interested into it. They're not going to watch game dev on a consistent basis.
Like you might see me pop in here now and be like asking you weird questions, but it's not like you'll get like the random person be like, I like people like I wonder how games make, but I truly believe that when they say they wonder like they like to see the 5 minute like doc dev on the publisher's YouTube channel. I think that's the equivalent of the average person actually cares about how games are made.
Yeah, I think so. And it's fine. And it not only is it fine, it's not necessarily it's not their job to
Mm-hmm.
understand how games are made, and to some degree, you know, it's kind of a little tangential, but I feel like a lot of devs, I it's tough to take criticism from some not viewers, but players in general. Like it's tough to see the thing that we've worked on for a lot of time for years get criticized and taken apart and whatnot. But I feel like that is the right of the customer, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that they paid for the game. It needs to match whatever expectations they're looking for. You can't have 100% success rate, but it is on us to kind of try to understand what the customer is going through, try to understand what solutions when they encounter problems, what solutions we can find. If they have a problem with a certain functionality, like it, in some cases they might be right. Sometimes it might be something that's not as polished as it could be. Sometimes it might be because they don't quite understand the if you change one thing, sometimes it'll change the rest of the game because it changes whatever other options that are associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Game design is obviously a very complex web of decision making. So, I mean, ultimately, everyone has opinions, and I think that's fine as well. And it's important for us as game devs to kind of look at that and try to understand what where people are coming from, try to understand sometimes what they're saying. They might be mentioning that there's a problem with something, but it might be an overarching issue of, I don't know, not enough resources. They might say, "Oh, this upgrade costs too much," but really the problem is that you're not giving enough money through the actions that you're doing through the game. You
Right.
know, stuff like that. Or maybe different people have different expectations of difficulty as well, and different expectations of grind. Um, as an aside, I am notoriously the guy who does not like Dark Souls. I absolutely hate Dark Souls, and it is one of my trigger words basically.
A Souls
Um,
game, you mean?
yeah, yeah, Souls games just in general. And one of the things I really hate about Dark Souls is that Dark Souls does not really ask the player what they want their experience to be. They are saying this is the experience that we're offering, and if you like it, here it is, and if you don't like it, then go away. We don't care about you. That doesn't have to be the case. Like, we can create experiences that are tailor-made for the players that are playing them. Different players will play games for different reasons. Some, I'm the kind of player who loves to discover stuff. I love to explore. Other people want to have that really dark, gritty challenge of Dark Souls games where you need to be perfect. You need to invest all of these hours and perfect yourself. And both are absolutely valid. That's kind of how I try to approach designing my games. I know what I want to create, but it's not up to me to tell the player, this is fun, you will enjoy this, and that's just how it is. No, different people have different interests, different approaches, and so, tech support has a story. You don't like story? Just don't do the story. Skip the story, just tell everyone, no, I don't care, and then you just complete the tickets. That's fine. You can absolutely do that. Tech support has difficulty levels. You struggle with the game, fine, put it on easy. You'll get more resources. It'll be a little bit easier. You'll be able to cruise through the thing and just enjoy the game at your pace. I have a friend who has cerebral palsy, who couldn't play the game on normal, but he absolutely loves the game on easy, because that is something that he can play and access. So those are all things that I feel are super important as game designers. We don't have to be we shouldn't be here and tell the people this is how it is. Like, we should be able to listen and kind of keep an open mind, keep this sandbox, because at the end of the day, whatever we want the player to experience, everyone is different. When placed in the same situation, they're not going to necessarily experience the same way. So we need to be conscious of that and kind of tailor experiences to the degree that is realistic,
Right.
accordingly.
That's a very interesting, I think, mindset to be to go like the complete opposite of the Souls route. Of like, the Souls route is, here's the thing I'm telling you to do. I'm not telling you how to do it, but I'm telling you have to do this thing. Have a good day. And yours is very much like a, well, you're gonna eventually get to here. I just don't per se care how you get to here. But at the end of the day, you are getting here because that's the thing I'm making.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about it's just about giving the player that freedom of choice, and that goes beyond just being able to explore different areas in the game. It starts at puzzles. If a player struggles with puzzles, okay, then some games outright give the option to skip puzzles entirely or make them more difficult. If people love puzzles, okay, maybe render them more difficult.
So
it's obviously, it takes a little bit more time. It's more time consuming because you need to account for that in the game's design. But if you plan for that at the start of the game, then suddenly you're able to create it ends up being less time consuming than if you just try to tack it on at the end of the game, at the day, or when people start complaining about, oh, this is too tough, or I can't do this, or whatever. Then if you haven't planned for that, then you might not be able to account for those anyways, because the game is the way it's structured at that point.
Which is interesting, because to me, I totally a quick way of like people installing that type of idea of you could skip this thing is like, it reminds me of like Grand Theft Auto 5, where like if you fail mission 3 times, just goes, do you want to skip this scene? Like, you still get the story part, but you really do, like, it's something like there was crane things in GTA's. They're like, you could just skip it now. Like, we're not gonna make you do this part if you care about, say, the story. And I think that's very much an interesting approach, and that same mindset of like, yeah, you really don't like this, do you? Well, let's go take you to the fun part.
You know what's interesting? You're giving these examples. I feel like if I had to do these, like I'm just thinking about it right now. Mm-hmm. If I had to do those things, instead of telling the player, do you want to skip this mission, I would instead make them invincible. Because then they still get to go through the process. They still get to deal with all the enemies. They still have, like, clearly they're enjoying the process of shooting enemies. and doing all these things. So rather than removing that aspect, I would make it easier on them. And in fact, I know that Resident Evil 4, for instance, had some of that stuff where you might enter a room and there might be 9 enemies that would assault you immediately, and if you died a few times, it would rebalance it, and suddenly you only have 7 enemies to contend with, or 6 or 5. So I think there are better ways than just to skip content. I think it's better to, when you can, adapt to the player, even if it's something entirely out of the blue, like, oh, you're invincible for the duration of this mission, and you can still present it in a way where it doesn't feel like you're invincible. Maybe you still flash red when you're being shot, but I think that the player has a little bit more to gain from there.
That is honestly a very interesting way that I was not thinking of looking at that. Um, so as we get to the tail end, I think AJ, do you have any final questions or things you want to bring up? Otherwise, I was thinking of just peeking my head into talking about Digital Rogue and saying all of our goodbyes. So, AJ, anything?
I just want to take a little sidetrack because, Kevin, knowing you're in Quebec City, did you ever make the trip down to Montreal to go to the Montreal Grand Prix?
The Montreal Grand Prix, racing.
Yeah, the F1 race.
No, I have not. I think my dad did, though, because my dad was really into F1 racing, and really followed Jacques Villeneuve and whatnot. That's going back quite a ways, but
Jacques still races. I mean,
oh, he's still okay.
Yeah,
Shows how much I know.
he's not racing like big stuff, but yeah, he's still racing. His kid races too, so yeah, I'm actually going to the race this summer. So I won't be actually. I'll be a couple hours from where you are, but
Well, actually, and this will transition beautifully into the Digital Rogue stuff.
Beautiful.
So I'm actually moving in a month, because basically I'm moving Dragon Slumber to Montreal. I
The
am
big indie game dev money. I'm proud of you.
well, 2018 was an interesting year for me, and in fact, I'm preparing a Gamma Sutra article that'll kind of go into further details for that. But basically, a lot of I've started a lot of projects. I've had a lot of opportunities, and 2019, one of my goals for 2019 for the company is just general growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm moving to Montreal, and in fact, Digital Rogue, I'm working with a 3D artist, who is also moving to Montreal from the US. And we're kind of consolidating operations there, and on Digital Rogue and other stuff, kind of growing the company, hopefully hiring people on Digital Rogue and other projects. So it's kind of a really interesting time for me, because the culmination of the last, you could say the last 2 years, because that's when I started the company, but really that's when I went full time. Really, it's all started in 2012. The culmination of the last 6 years of work are starting to pay off, and I'm really starting to see all of these opportunities pop up that I'm obviously seizing as much as I can, including moving out of Quebec City for the first time in like 20 years. So yeah, it's a big change, but it's really exciting. Don't know that I'll be going to the races though.
So
But
let me
I'll be doing
get straight.
something else.
You have the ability to move, but you still stay in that cold land of Canada. I understand. I understand. I'm just saying, you guys do understand it gets cold there.
Well, so
hey,
Montreal,
it gets cold everywhere, dude. Like,
yeah, apparently it's colder in Chicago right now than Quebec City. So there you go.
Shh, this is an anomaly. It's not normal. Okay.
yeah, it's a good. When I checked the weather before we started recording, it's a good like 10 degrees C colder where I am than where you are, Kevin. So
Yeah,
and
it's
we're
been
really kind of like what is it, latitude wise, roughly the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It it's been a crazy year all throughout, and even we have really cold colds, but even if you look on the opposite side, in places like Australia, for instance, they're having incredibly hot, like record-breaking weather over there, and it's like 45 to 50 degrees Celsius being felt,
Mm-hmm.
which for in Fahrenheit is over 120. So
Good.
the weather is definitely all over the place, no matter where you go. I guess at the point. So
I like the good moral of the story. You're like, it gets cold places, it gets hot places. Well,
yep.
you choose the cold.
Well, so I didn't quite choose the cold, but the thing is, so part of the reason why we're moving to Montreal is because Quebec has actually a really good um, grant system. So they help out game developers quite a bit, and they invest in game developers. There's a reason why a lot of game dev happens in Montreal nowadays, even with AAA studios like EA and Ubisoft and whatnot, because Quebec invested in game development. They're giving money back when you're hiring people, hiring local talent and whatnot. And now there's just a ton of great developers available, which hopefully we'll be able to tap into and take advantage of all of those financial opportunities as well.
That is for sure an interesting thing. Like I always forget personally how big like parts of Canada like are for the game dev scene because it's very much I feel like it's very much like a here's a pocket or here's a pocket. It's not always so much United States, but I feel like we have more of those pockets.
Yeah, it really varies from place to place. Like obviously you have a lot of pockets in the U.S. as well with I don't know San Francisco and L.A. and all those
Hmm.
those West Coast places. I think so. Earlier, you were asking me about when it comes to being an indie dev and having all of these skill sets. I think one of the crucial elements that a lot of indies forget is just business acumen. It's about you need to be able to negotiate contracts. You need to be able to figure out all of your finances. I'm going through an accountant, but still, there's a lot of that stuff that needs to be figured out. There is a lot of time that I spend, which is not game dev, because I have all of these other responsibilities that are tied with the business itself. Being an independent developer is a business, and
Hmm.
that's even more true when you grow, when you start having other people on board, employees, whatnot. Like you need to be able to figure all of those things out. Um, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of indie devs, a lot of newcomers kind of not only forget but struggle with really because they all they want to do, and I understand them, is just to make games. But if you just focus on making games, you're probably not going to be successful because there are thousands of other people also trying to make games, and it's a market that doesn't only want to see great games. It wants to see great marketing. It requires, managing your costs properly. It requires all of these other incidentals, which are a reality of being a game dev. And I've kind of been fortunate to be able to balance out all of those things, all of those realities, and apparently clearly also program the games that I make and design them and do the writing and all of those other tasks. That's kind of why I end up working so many hours. I work 60, 70, 80 hours a week because there are so many things to do. You kind of can't get to the other side if you're not doing that, at least at first when you're establishing yourself. Once you're established, then you have a team that you can kind of offload the work and it becomes a lot easier. But yeah, those are the realities of being a game dev.
For that good, I feel like it becoming a lot easier is probably the fallacy we all pretend is true, and then if you ask everyone else who says that, they go, no, no, it doesn't. But yeah, Kevin, I'd like to thank you for hanging with us for almost an hour talking about your games, game dev in general, and apparently racing. This is the time where I would say, me and AJ will stop for a second. We'll ask you. So, where where can people find you? Find your games? When is tech support coming out? All of that good stuff.
Let's go. So, tech support is coming out on February 27th, 2019. It will be available on Steam, on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Steam and other stores. Working with my publisher to kind of get those things done. You guys can you can find out more about tech support at techsupportgame.com. You'll find all of the details. There is a demo available on Steam. Go check it out. You can really get a feel for how the game plays through the demo. As for myself, you can find me all over the place. I'm on Twitter at Dragon_Slumber. I'm on Facebook at Dragon Slumber Games. And as we mentioned, I do stream some game development. I stream every single day of the week. And you can find me on Twitch at Dragon Slumber, I believe. I don't think there's an underscore. If you just look for Dragon Slumber, you'll find me. All of this information, if you go to dragonslumber.com, which is my main website, you'll find all of my games there. You'll find all of the links. It's the best place to find out more about everything Dragon Slumber and, me, clearly, apparently.
Nice. And again, we'd like to thank you for joining us talking for a while. For the SWW show, I'm Mike. You can find me at Mikey_Maroney on Twitter. And AJ, where can the people find you?
I'm at LoCBoy on Twitter.
And remember, the SWW show can be found on iTunes, any major podcast service around the globe. Remember to go on your Switch podcast. Please rate us. Please subscribe. Please like us. Please tell a friend. It helps a lot. And we'll catch you guys next time.